Next up, we're going to talk about measuring area and volume, both within the metric system and then conversions to other systems too. So just to give you some perspective on length again, 1 kilometer is about equal to 0.6 miles. And then we also know about 2.5 centimeters is 1 inch. So the one thing you have to be careful about, we're going to talk about geometry and stuff later, but if you're finding areas and volumes of stuff, you need every figure or every side of the figure to be within the same unit. So to just give you some examples with just squares. So here, if I've got 1 centimeter squared, the area of this is we multiply the two. So 1 times 1 gives me 1, and centimeters times centimeters gives me centimeters squared. If I go ahead and I double this length in each direction, it actually gives me something that's 4 times the size, because area is that two-dimensional figure. So what happens here, my area is 2 centimeters times 2 centimeters. The 2 times 2 gives me 4, and that unit is centimeters squared. Okay? So anytime you're working with areas, it's typically expressed in square units. So it always should have that second power, where just length itself is the unit to the first. Now, if you think about ways we measure large land here, it's typically in acres. So we have a couple acres for a property or a 100-acre farm or something like that. The metric system does have something similar. So when they're dealing with large areas, they use a square unit, which has 100 meters on each side. And really, if you go through the conversions, that's the same thing as 1 hectometer. So this is 100 meters. So the area of this would be 1 hectometer squared. So the unit they actually use for that is 1 hectare. So the unit is a hectare. So we've got the acre. They have the hectare to represent these bodies of land. So their farms are typically expressed in hectares. Okay? So just to start to work through this, we're going to try to figure out how many times larger a square meter is from a centimeter. Okay? So if I think about a square with side lengths, which are 1 meter and 1 meter, the area of this is 1 meter squared. What I can do to figure out how many centimeters squared that is really just kind of convert the sides. So running through my phrase, King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk, adding in that A here, and my unit is meters. To get from meters to centimeters, you're moving that decimal 2 spaces to the right. So 1 meter, moving that 2 to the right, is 100 centimeters. So this area is 1 meter by 1 meter, which is the same thing. Each meter is 100 centimeters. So this is 100 centimeter by 100 centimeter. So 100 times 100 gives you 10,000, and the units on that is centimeters squared. Okay, so a square meter is 10,000 times bigger than a square centimeter. And you could really do this with all of your different conversions or different units itself. So when we're working in two-dimensional shapes, you're only going to find area, and these are always going to be measured in units to the second. Okay, length is units to the first. The second you bump it up to 3D, so you're finding how much space something is taking up, that's going to be volume. And these are always going to be given in units cubed when you're dealing with length as the starting point. However, for the metric system, you can express the volume in terms of meters to the third, centimeters to the third, anything of that nature. But we also have those units of liters that we can measure it in. So when you're dealing with the length, that's typically when you're going to have rigid sides, and then you would just multiply those sides together. When you're dealing with something of a cylindrical shape, so like a beaker or something of that nature, that's when you would typically use liters. But both of these still talk about measuring space, okay? Because what happens is, if I take the amount of liquid that fits into this box and I pour it into here, there is a conversion between these two because that amount of liquid takes up the same space in the beaker. So we ultimately do have some conversions from cubic units to liters. So if I have 1 centimeter cubed, it's the same thing as 1 milliliter. 1 decimeter cubed is 1 liter. And 1 meter cubed is 1 kiloliter. Okay. So there are also other conversions to go from feet to meters in terms of these different areas. You can look them up if you need to have kind of a cheat sheet while you're doing your homework. Like 1 foot to the third, or 1 foot cubed, is 0.03 meters cubed. 1 inch cubed is 6.5 centimeters, or 1 inch squared is 6.5 centimeters squared. But the other thing you can also do is you can work with that single conversion, that 1 inch is 2.5 centimeters, to be able to convert areas or volumes. So we're going to do an example of this. Victoria's buying an outdoor carpet, which she needs to be 6 yards by 9 yards. The carpeting is only sold in square meters. We want to figure out how many square meters does she need, okay? So I'm going to do this 2 different ways. The first way is only knowing the single conversion. So 1 yard is equivalent to 0.9 meters. So if I draw a little picture, we've got a rectangular space we're putting carpet in. One side is 9 yards, and the other side is 6 yards. I can find the area of this to start, but because I want it in square meters, let's go ahead and convert each of these. Okay. So just to fill in, we're starting with 9 yards, and I want to convert this to meters. So to get rid of the yards unit, I will divide by yards, which means meter goes in the top. So this way the yards disappears, and I know 1 yard is 0.9 meters. Okay. So what this gives me is I'm left with 9 times 0.9 meters. Okay. So if I go through and I actually do this multiplication, when we do 9 times 0.9, that gives me 8.1. My point does not want to write meters. Okay. So really here, this is 8.1 meters. Then doing the same thing with 6 yards. I'm really going to use the same conversion factor because to get rid of yards, we put it in the bottom. And then 1 yard is 0.9 meters. So we have 6 times 0.9. And if we go through it and actually do that, that gives us 5.4 meters. Okay. So this side length is 5.4 meters. So my area in square meters would be 8.1 times 5.4. And if we go through and do that, that would be 43.74 meters squared. Where if you also need the area in square yards, all you would do is 9 times 6, so it's 54 square yards. The second method would be, again, dependent upon the information that you have, but maybe we're told that 1 yard squared is 0.8 meters squared. In this case, I would need to find the area of the carpet in yards squared. Which in that case would be 9 yards times 6 yards, which is 54 yards squared. Then I have this direct connection to be able to convert it. So 54 yards squared, to get rid of yards squared, we put it in the bottom. So this way it cancels out. And 1 yard squared is 0.8 meters squared. So if we go ahead and we multiply these two, my unit remaining is meters squared, not yards squared. This would give me about 43.2 meters squared. You do get a slightly different number because of this rounding that ends up happening. It's not exactly 1 yard squared is 0.8 meters squared. It's just an approximation. So it's slightly off. Again, it's just dependent upon the information that's given to you. So let's just try a couple more examples where we're going to go ahead and convert, and each one of these is going to give us that conversion that we need. So when you're going through your homework, you'll notice on certain questions that the conversions will pop up for you. You're not expected to memorize those things. Like, you don't need to know that 1 yard squared is 0.8 meters squared. That's not information that's essential. You just need to know kind of the basic ones, converting within the metric unit itself, and then also going from like feet to inches and seconds to minutes and stuff like that. So for this one, we've got 37 meters squared to yards squared. So starting with this, if I want to get rid of the meter squared, I need to put that in the bottom. And then my conversion, I know, is that 0.8 meters squared is 1 yard squared. So this makes my meter squared unit disappear. I'm left with a 37 in the numerator, a 0.8 in the denominator, and then the only unit remaining is yards squared. So going through that division, 37 meters squared is about 46.25 yards squared. So again, much nicer to not have to do the two conversions. For this next one, we're starting with 20,000 feet cubed, and we want to get to gallons, and thankfully there is this direct connection, cubic feet to gallons. So I can put feet cubed in the bottom, gallons up top, to make my feet cubed disappear. And 1 cubic foot is about 7.48 gallons. So what I'll need to do is I've got 20,000 and 7.48 left with gallons as my unit. So this is equal to 149,600 gallons. So a lot of gallons. Okay. Next up, we want to go centimeters cubed to milliliters. So again, writing down my unit. To get rid of centimeters cubed, we're going to put that in the bottom. And then using my conversion, I know 1 centimeter cubed is 1 milliliter. And then my centimeters cubed is gone. I'm left with 22 times 1 and divided by 1 really does nothing. So 22 centimeters cubed is really equal to 22 milliliters. There's that direct 1-to-1 correlation. Okay. Last but not least, we're going to do 3.5 liters, 2 centimeters cubed. So again, to get rid of liters, I've got to put that in that denominator spot to make it cancel. And then I know 1 liter is equivalent to 1,000 centimeters cubed. So I'm left with 3.5, 1,000, and then my only unit remaining is centimeters cubed. So this ends up giving me 3,500 centimeters cubed. Okay. So really, again, it's just kind of an application of what we've already done. It's just using length to do two different sides, or instead, if you know the direct correlation between the units squared to the units squared or units cubed to something else, you save yourself the hassle of having to do two conversions.